Snow had been falling gently since morning, turning the city streets into long white ribbons, when Aria Whitmore stepped out of her black car and paused for just a second. She was the kind of woman who usually never paused. As the CEO of a powerful tech firm, her life ran on tight schedules, sharp decisions, and boardrooms filled with people who never dared to waste her time. Yet that afternoon, standing outside a modest community hall decorated with paper stars and blinking lights, her chest felt tight. Her hand instinctively reached for her daughter's smaller one, holding it firmly, protectively. Christmas dinner was supposed to be warm and joyful, but Aria felt exposed, almost afraid. Her daughter, Nor Whitmore, was 9 years old, with soft brown curls tucked under a woolen hat and curious eyes that noticed everything. Nor had been deaf since birth. To Aria, Nor was the strongest, brightest part of her life. To the world, unfortunately, she was often a reminder of what people did not understand. Aria had faced investors without fear, handled billion-dollar losses without blinking, but moments like this, stepping into public spaces where kindness was uncertain, always made her heart race. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of simple human compassion, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Journal. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The Christmas dinner was hosted by a local charity, one Aria's company quietly donated to every year. She had never attended before. Tonight was different. Nor had asked to go. She had seen the flyers with colorful drawings and smiling faces and signed to her mother with excitement. Aria could never say no to that look. Still, as they entered the hall filled with long tables, laughter, and clinking plates, Aria felt the familiar wall rise around her. People recognized her face. Whispers moved faster than the falling snow outside. The powerful CEO was here, but no one seemed to know how to act around the quiet little girl by her side, nor clutched her mother's coat as they walked past families and volunteers. Children ran by laughing, their voices echoing across the hall. Nor watched their mouths move, their faces light up, and her smile slowly faded. She wasn't sad, exactly, but there was that familiar distance, like watching life through glass. Aria noticed instantly. She lowered herself slightly, signing reassurance, telling Nor it would be okay, that they would eat, smile, and go home if they needed to. Still, inside, Aria felt a sharp ache. No amount of money could buy her daughter effortless belonging. They found seats near the side of the hall. The table was already half full. Across from them sat a man in a worn brown jacket, his hair slightly unkempt, his posture tired but gentle. Beside him was a little boy about Nor's age, carefully arranging plastic cutlery as if following a strict pattern. The man smiled politely when Aria sat down, but there was no recognition in his eyes, no sudden change in behavior. To him, she was just another mother. Of the boy, however, kept glancing at Nor. Not with curiosity that felt invasive, but with something closer to understanding. He tapped his father's arm and pointed gently toward Nor's hands as she signed something to her mother. The father leaned in, listened, then looked at Nor with a soft expression that surprised Aria. The man raised his hands and slowly, carefully, signed a simple greeting. Nor's face lit up like the Christmas lights overhead. Aria froze. She watched as Nor eagerly signed back, her movements quick and excited. The boy joined in, his sign smaller but confident. The three of them began communicating without sound, their faces animated, their hands moving in a quiet rhythm that felt almost sacred in the noisy hall. Aria felt tears sting her eyes, uninvited and sudden. This did not happen often. Most people looked away, embarrassed or unsure. This man and his son leaned in without hesitation. The man's name was Elias Carter, a single father who worked daytime shifts repairing city buses. Life had not been kind to him. His wife had passed away years earlier after a long illness, leaving him alone with their son, Milo. Milo was not deaf, but Elias had learned sign language when Milo was younger because his best friend in preschool had been deaf. The habit never left him. Over the years, learning to communicate without sound had taught Elias something deeper, how to truly see people. As plates of food were served and laughter filled the air, Nor laughed too, her silent laughter visible in the way her shoulders bounced and her eyes crinkled. She and Milo shared stories through signs, about favorite cartoons, about snow, about silly teachers. Aria sat quietly, overwhelmed. For the first time that day, she didn't feel like she had to shield her daughter from the world. The world, at least in this small corner, was reaching back. Arya tried to join in, her signing slower, more formal. Elias noticed and gently adjusted his pace, making sure she could follow. There was no pity in his eyes, no curiosity about her wealth or status. He asked simple questions through signs, about Noor's favorite food, about school, about Christmas. Arya answered, feeling something inside her soften. She realized how rare it was for someone to speak to her without an agenda. The dinner continued in warm daylight filtered through tall windows, the sun reflecting off the snow outside and filling the hall with a soft glow. Volunteers moved between tables, children unwrapped small gifts, and music played quietly in the background. Noor and Milo exchanged drawings on napkins, laughing silently at their own jokes. Arya watched Elias help his son with patience she admired deeply. He wasn't perfect. His jacket was old, his hands rough, his eyes tired. But there was a steadiness to him, a calm strength Arya found herself drawn to later. As dessert was served, a small incident disrupted the warmth. One of the volunteers placed a gift box in front of Noor and spoke quickly, explaining something Arya couldn't quite catch. Noor looked confused. The volunteer repeated herself, louder this time, unaware. The hall seemed to pause. Arya felt the old familiar anger rise in her chest, sharp and protective. She stood up slightly, ready to intervene. Elias moved first. He gently tapped the volunteer's arm, signed a brief explanation, and gestured kindly toward Noor. His movements were calm, respectful, never making the volunteer feel embarrassed. Understanding dawned on the volunteer's face, followed by genuine apology. She smiled at Noor and signed a simple Merry Christmas she clearly had just learned. Noor smiled back, accepting it without hesitation. Arya sat back down, her heart pounding. She had spent years fighting, correcting, educating. She had lawyers and influence and power. Yet here was a single father with no title, no wealth, diffusing a moment with grace she couldn't be. As the afternoon stretched on, Arya learned more about Elias without words. She learned about early mornings, packed lunches, broken washing machines, and quiet nights spent helping with homework. Elias learned that Arya was not just a CEO, but a mother who read bedtime stories with exaggerated expressions so her daughter could feel the emotion, a woman who learned patience the hard way. When the dinner ended and families began to leave, snow still falling softly outside, Arya felt a strange reluctance. She didn't want this moment to end. Noor hugged Milo tightly, signing promises of meeting again. Elias helped his son put on his coat, then turned to Arya. He signed a simple message, slow and clear, about how nice it was to meet them, about how Noor was a wonderful child. Arya swallowed hard. She signed back her thanks, meaning far more than the words conveyed. Before they parted, Elias did something that truly surprised her. He reached into his pocket and handed Noor a small folded paper. It was a drawing Milo had made of the four of them sitting at the table, snow falling outside, hands moving in the air. At the bottom, Milo had written, in careful letters, "Friends can hear with their hearts." Noor held it like a treasure. That night, driving home through bright daytime reflections on snowy streets, Arya felt something shift inside her. She had come to the dinner expecting charity. She left with humility. She realized that kindness did not always come from polished speeches or grand gestures. Sometimes it came from worn jackets, tired hands, and a willingness to notice. In the days that followed, Arya couldn't stop thinking about Elias and Milo. She didn't look them up. She didn't send assistance. She simply carried the memory with her. At work, she noticed her own employees more. She slowed down. She asked questions. She pushed for better accessibility in her company, not as a policy, but as a promise. Weeks later, through the same charity, Arya quietly arranged for funding to expand sign language programs across several community centers. She requested no publicity. She insisted the credit go to the families who inspired it. Elias never knew exactly where the support came from. He only knew that one day, Milo had a new place to learn, to belong, to connect. On Christmas morning, Noor placed Milo's drawing on the wall beside her bed. Arya watched her daughter trace the lines with her finger, smiling softly. For the first time in a long while, Arya felt at peace. She understood that her daughter's world was not smaller because it was quiet. It was simply different, and sometimes, beautifully so. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and stay connected with Kindness Journal. Your engagement helps spread story.